Well, hello again, and welcome to another issue of Questions and Answers. My name is Roger Conrad. I'm the editor of Conrad's Utility Investor, and today I'm going to talk about some questions that I've received from readers regarding new technology, maybe something that a lot of investors don't think about when they consider utility stocks, but there's a lot to talk about. So let's get started. So our first question today comes to us from Tom, and he's writing from California. And Tom asks, why don't we cover more SolarCity and Tesla? Aren't they the future of energy? Well, Tom, the company I like of Elon Musk's is actually space exploration. There's some very exciting things going on there. The problem with both SolarCity and Tesla is they're bleeding cash like it's going out of style. They don't have a viable business model, particularly SolarCity, which actually installs those rooftop units. Now, in stark contrast, the utilities that we cover and are looking at are making money in this business. They are building utility scale solar systems, they're building distributed energy solar systems, and they're making money doing it. And that for me is the bottom line. So my question to you is, why would I recommend SolarCity or Tesla to readers when I can recommend a utility that I know is going to be there 10 years down the road, is making money, and is paying me a dividend? Thank you for that question. So our second question comes from Mary, and she's writing from Illinois. And Mary asks, since we're adopting solar energy in America at such a breakneck pace, doesn't that mean that our natural gas companies and natural gas pipelines are basically obsolete, and shouldn't we get rid of them? Mary, the interesting thing about the American energy, the second American energy revolution, or rather the electricity revolution, is that it's basically powered by two types of energy rather than just one. Now, solar is definitely one of them. We're seeing breakneck growth, but we are seeing also incredible growth in usage of natural gas. Natural gas power plants are much more easily scaled to replace some of the coal-fired power plants, which are actually being phased out in many parts of the country, particularly the southeast and the middle Atlantic states. So there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity to tap into rising natural gas demand. A lot of the natural gas producers certainly in a lot of trouble. Gas prices have been very low. That's why we like the pipeline companies, and we do have a large number of them in various portfolios of our newsletters. What I do in Conrad's Utility Investor is focus on the more utility-like of those, and I can definitely point you to a few of those as a reader of Conrad's Utility Investor. Thanks for that question. Okay, so the third question I'm going to answer today is actually from a solar skeptic, and we certainly have a few of those as readers. And this is from Randy from Texas, and Randy writes that solar power is expensive, and why wouldn't it be? Why are we going to adopt this form of energy with natural gas prices so cheap? And as I mentioned in the answer to the previous question, natural gas is a big deal. We are using a lot more of it, particularly for power generation, and that's a trend that's going to continue for some time to come. But the economics of solar are somewhat different. Obviously, it's more expensive per megawatt to produce from solar than it is from gas at this point in time. But the cost of solar energy has actually dropped pretty dramatically, and more importantly, solar has quite a bit of support, not only on the federal government level, but also on the state level. So solar economics are helped a lot by tax cuts, also by, and more importantly, by mandated renewable portfolio standards in many of the states. So again, what might not be economic on a straight-up basis is very economic. Now, of course, solar advocates would argue that natural gas and other fossil fuels don't fully price in environmental externalities, or in other words, the pollution costs. And I think this will probably become a bigger issue going forward. But in the meantime, utilities that are adopting solar power are doing so under a very firm foundation of contracts, also in regulated rate base, and they're doing so at a time when component costs are dropping and actually economies of scale are building in this sector. So I see it as very good economics for solar power for the utilities going forward. Now, I would not extend that to most of the solar companies out there. I think we're heading for some pretty serious bankruptcies. I think some household names are about to shock people, but the utilities, I think, have very good economics for developing this as a fuel source. And again, we're already seeing it in earnings, and we're seeing it in accelerated dividend growth rates. So very much showing up there on the bottom line. Thanks for that question. Our fourth question of the day comes from Robert, and he's writing to me from New York. And Robert points out that we've been rightfully bearish on the German utilities, RWE and E.ON, both of which that have cut their dividends over the past several years. They, of course, have been done in by adoption of renewable energy in Germany and falling wholesale power prices in Germany, which has pretty much gutted their earnings. And Robert asks, why don't we expect the same thing to happen in the U.S., and why aren't we similarly bearish? Well, as I answered to the previous question, solar energy has very good economics for U.S. utilities and very bad economics for almost everybody else in the industry. The only companies I would say that have worked out favorable economics are two that have actually partnered with utilities around the country and are doing so in a very big way, and that's SunPower, which is about 57% owned by Total, the major oil company, and also First Solar. The rest of the industry, particularly the companies that have chosen to compete with utilities, have done very, very poorly. Now, why is this the case? Well, first of all, companies in Germany, the big companies there, operate in a very centralized system. The U.S. utilities operate very much in a state-by-state system. Economics of different generation sources are very different from state to state, from region to region, whereas in Germany there's not so much big difference. Utilities also saw this coming, and I don't think they get nearly enough credit for being flexible as they are. I attended the Edison Electric Institute meetings in November. One of the co-sponsors of that meeting, which it basically lines up utility executives with analysts, and the executives tell the stories of their companies. But one of the co-sponsors there was SunPower. So a lot of companies have seen the handwriting on the wall. There's a partnership going here. Again, very different situation from what's happening in Germany. I'd still avoid those big German utilities. But a number of U.S. utilities, as I said, are actually accelerating their growth rate by investing in solar. So again, big difference, and recognizing that is really pretty valuable information in this market. Thanks for that question. Our last question today comes from Helen, and she's writing from North Carolina. And Helen asks, what U.S. utilities are good solar power plays? Well, Helen, I can tell you that actually the utility that serves you right now, Duke Energy, is actually a major player in the solar business. They made an acquisition of a solar developer about a year ago, and they parlayed that into accumulating a pretty large portfolio around the country. They're also very active in the state of North Carolina, in the state of South Carolina. Not yet in Florida, but that could be a very big market for them. So you don't really have to go any further than your own backyard. You know, sometimes the best investment ideas are the obvious ones that a lot of people overlook in their quest to get rich quick. And in this case, again, the obvious, I think, does the job. So thanks for that question. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's commentary and questions and answers. And I look forward to receiving your questions in the future and another appearance in the not too distant future. Thanks again.